So far, we've mostly focused on internal causes, those invisible storms created by our strong emotions. But these are actually contrasted with what the text calls non-internal or external causes. Now, these aren't pathogens attacking you from the outside, and there aren't feelings from the inside. There simply are seemingly harmless daily habits and postures that quietly, slowly destroy our internal balance over time.
I worked as a banker for 30 years, but now I work as an acupuncturist.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into something truly fascinating today. We're looking at a text from Eastern medicine that makes a really bold, honestly, a very literal claim that our deepest emotions actually map directly onto our physical organs. We hear about the mind-body connection all the time, right? But usually it's kind of vague. Well, what we're looking at today gives us a highly specific mechanical blueprint of exactly how your feelings can physically damage your internal system. Okay, let's dive into this with a pretty counterintuitive question. Did you know being too happy might actually ruin your focus? I mean, we all want to be happy, obviously, but the source material we're breaking down today suggests that hitting a state of extreme, overwhelming joy can actually completely derail your concentration and mental sharpness. It sounds entirely backward to how we normally think about positive emotions, but as we unpack the information today, you're going to see exactly why this happens on a physiological level. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to look at the mind-body connection. Then, map out the 7 emotions and their corresponding organs. After that, we'll explore the danger of extremes, uncover some hidden lifestyle causes, and finally, wrap up with stagnant fluids and blood. Let's get to it. Starting off with the mind-body connection, we really need to understand what the text refers to as internal causes. Have you ever gotten a really weird, mysterious stomachache right before a huge presentation? Well, according to this medical philosophy, that is definitely not a random glitch. It's actually defined as an internal cause. See, when human emotions get intensely strong or they just linger for way too long, they actually stop being just feelings. They become literal internal disease triggers. They directly disrupt the movement of your body's vital energy, what's known as qi. All right, moving into the anatomy of our feelings, specifically the 7 emotions and how they link to the 5 organs. What's really interesting here is how vividly this connection is illustrated. Look at these highly expressive cartoon faces mapped directly onto the major organs. You've got this fiercely angry face linked to the liver, a laughing face right there on the heart, a crying face for the lungs, this absolutely terrified face for the kidneys, and finally a really burdened, overthinking face mapped onto the spleen. It visually drives home the idea that your organs are, quite literally, experiencing your moods. Now, let's break down the precise mechanics of that relationship. You can think of your qi as this massively complex bodily traffic system. When you experience one of these 7 emotions, so that's anger, joy, sadness, grief, fear, fright, or overthinking, your qi reacts in a highly specific way. It stops flowing normally. Instead, it might aggressively rise, slacken, disappear, drop, scatter, or just completely stagnate. And all of that depends entirely on which emotion you're feeling and which organ it targets. So, what happens when qi goes haywire? Let's look at the danger of extremes and how these feelings build into real physical symptoms. Let's take anger, for example. When anger takes over, it zeroes in on the liver, causing your qi to shoot straight up. Imagine a pot of water just boiling over. Your qi and your blood aggressively rush upwards. That's exactly why people get red in the face and dizzy when they're absolutely furious. But on the total opposite end of the spectrum, extreme sadness and grief target the lungs. Sadness makes your qi literally disappear or dissipate. It's kind of like a deflating balloon. That's why deep, heavy grief leaves you feeling physically exhausted and just entirely weakened. And this brings us right back to our opening hook. How in the world can joy be bad? Obviously, joy is a great emotion, but excessive joy actually slackens the qi. It relaxes your energy just a bit too much. When that happens, it affects the heart, causing its energy to drop. The direct result here is that your mind loses its necessary tension and focus, totally destroying your concentration. It's a brilliant reminder that biological balance is literally everything. Even absolute euphoria comes with a physical cost. Then we have fear and fright, which both assault the kidneys. I found this next part absolutely fascinating. The text points out two pretty shocking physical reactions to the rapid drop in qi caused by extreme fear. First, it can cause immediate incontinence. And second, because the kidneys are so closely linked to hair health, severe terror can actually turn your hair white. No way, right? Fright, on the other hand, is more like a sudden, violent shock. It violently scrambles and scatters your qi, leaving you feeling entirely unmoored. Finally, there's thought, or more accurately, overthinking and constant worry. When you're endlessly ruminating on something, you are literally tying your qi into knots. This stagnant, knotted energy directly damages the spleen. If you've ever wondered why chronic anxiety so frequently leads to awful stomach aches, a total loss of appetite, or staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. with insomnia, well, this is exactly why. The energy in your digestive and processing core is completely gridlocked. Okay, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about hidden lifestyle causes. We're looking at the physical traps we fall into every day. So far, we've mostly focused on internal causes, those invisible storms created by our strong emotions. But these are actually contrasted with what the text calls non-internal or external causes. Now, these aren't pathogens attacking you from the outside, and there aren't feelings from the inside. There simply are seemingly harmless daily habits and postures that quietly, slowly destroy our internal balance over time. So what exactly are these habits? Well, they're the extremes of everyday life. Working yourself to the bone, playing too hard without ever resting, or overeating. But I want you to really look at this last point. Are you sitting at a desk right now, holding the exact same movement or posture like sitting or standing for prolonged periods is highlighted as a massive culprit. Remaining totally static on the outside pretty much guarantees that things will eventually stop flowing on the inside. And that brings us to the final and frankly kind of gross consequence of all this disruption: stagnant fluids and blood. When your qi gets disrupted by intense emotions or static habits, your bodily fluids just stop moving. In this philosophy, that stagnation is defined as phlegm fluid. And we're not just talking about a runny nose here. This refers to body fluids that have stagnated and become exceptionally sticky and thick. It's this gross internal sludge that triggers severe physical symptoms like chronic coughing, asthma, swelling all over the body, and major gastrointestinal issues.
And this sickly cartoon figure right here brilliantly illustrates the ultimate result of all that. Look at him. He looks absolutely miserable, clutching his stomach and chest. It perfectly captures that heavy, suffocating feeling of having your internal traffic system entirely clogged up by stagnant fluids and blood.
Alongside those sticky fluids, we also have to deal with blood stasis. Just like the fluids, when your qi stops, your blood stops. It literally pools and stagnates. Its main hallmark is this sharp, piercing pain. And because your blood isn't circulating freely anymore, your entire body's vitality just plummets. This leads either directly or indirectly to really serious illness and tissue damage.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this: your emotions and your static desk job aren't just things you deal with mentally. Intense feelings of anger, deep grief, or even excessive joy, especially when combined with highly static daily habits, actually manifest into real, dangerous physical blockages of qi, fluids, and blood. Your mind and your body are driving on the exact same highway. It really makes you rethink how you process your day-to-day life, doesn't it? As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to chew on. Based on the emotions you felt today, and the physical habits you've engaged in over the last few hours, which of your organs' qi is stagnating right now? Take a deep breath, maybe get up and stretch a little, and, give your spleen a little break from all that overthinking.
I worked as a banker for 30 years, but now I work as an acupuncturist.